In a significant escalation of the conflict in the Middle East, Iran has overnight launched as many as 200 missiles towards Israel in revenge attacks, sending Israeli citizens into shelters right across the country. The Israeli Defence Force says there will be consequences for the attack, which appears to have finished now without causing serious damage.
The missile launches came just minutes after two gunmen opened fire in Tel Aviv, killing at least 6 people and injuring several others in a suspected terror attack. Israel's military says it's continued carrying out attacks in Lebanon, targeting Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah. Our correspondents in Israel and the United States join us now. First to Allyson Horn in Tel Aviv. Ali, just a grave and concerning situation unfolding as we speak.
Yeah, certainly a dramatic couple of hours. Where I am standing right now in Tel Aviv, it was about 7 p.m. local time when this massive barrage of rockets started appearing in the skies across Israel. I was on a road between Haifa, which is in the north of Israel, in Tel Aviv, when we started seeing this almost unending wave of rockets appearing above us and interceptions from Israel's missile defence system, the Iron Dome, exploding in the sky above us before we made our way into shelter. But the IDF says that more than 180 missiles were fired from Iran into Israeli territory, mainly centred around the central areas and the southern areas of Israel. So here in Tel Aviv, we are still getting a bit of a picture of what kind of impact there has been. We have been told that there has been a number of rockets that have made impact, but we can't really report too much about that because some of those impacts are being restricted by the Israeli military under media censorship laws that we have to follow here in Israel. We understand that nobody has been killed in Israel, but there was one man that has been killed in the West Bank, but when one of these rockets fell in the West Bank. So an incredibly serious situation. This is only the second time ever in Israel's history that Iran has launched a direct attack on Israel. The first was in April this year. Now this is the second. Iran's Revolutionary Guard say this attack was in retaliation for the Israeli assassinations of a number of high-profile militants, including the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, and the leader of Hezbollah in Iran, Hassan Nasrallah, who was killed by Israel just a few days ago. Now, from the statements that Iran has put out, they say this issue is now closed. This is the end of what they call their retaliation on Israel. And they have warned Israel that if there is a response launched to this massive rocket barrage, that they will not hesitate to fire back. And Israel is already indicating that there will be consequences. We don't know what that will look like, whether or not it could be a direct attack on Iranian soil or perhaps with some of the Iranian proxies around the region, maybe the Houthis in Yemen or further with Hezbollah in Lebanon. But we do expect that this isn't the end of this scenario.
Yes, indeed, Allyson. We'll go to Carrington Clark in the US in just a moment. But the world, particularly the US, is bracing for what we can pretty much lock in to be a pretty severe attack by Israel on Iran, potentially targeting some of the sites where those missiles were launched and also targeting sites where work is continuing on nuclear weapons for Iran.
Yeah, and this has been the fear all along, Michael, as these escalations between Israel and Hezbollah have been intensifying over the last few weeks, that Iran would become involved and launch what had, up until quite recently, been a relatively contained conflict along the Israel-Lebanon border into a wider war, drawing in Iran, which has enormous firepower, which has enormous capabilities of weaponry. I'm not sure that that's a scenario that we're going to see eventuate, but it is a possibility because Israel says that it will be striking some sort of a response. It says Iran will feel the consequences of this massive rocket barrage here in the last few hours. So we don't know how that's going to come about, what sites they may target. For example, as you mentioned, nuclear weapons facilities sites or nuclear research sites within Iran. That is certainly something that could be on the cards. But security forces have been meeting in Israel tonight. We understand that they met for the first time inside a bunker in Jerusalem to try and plan the way forward. And I will just mention, Michael, that although Iran had been signalling that it would launch some kind of massive retaliation on Israel for quite a few weeks since the assassination of the Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh, it kind of felt like tonight's attack caught Israel a little off guard. It wasn't like people were given a lot of warning that rockets were going to be incoming. In fact, there didn't seem to really be any warning at all, apart from hundreds of rocket alerts suddenly going off in the country and then looking up into the skies and seeing these 180 rockets just flying over you constantly. So it does appear now that this will escalate further, but we're still to see how far that goes and whether or not that will progress into drawing Iran and Israel into a war.
Ali and Carrington, I do want to come to you very quickly, but just quickly, Ali, we can see in some ways life going on behind you there. There looks to be a police cordon of some sort, buses and cars going on behind you. What is life like right now in Tel Aviv, given, as you said, this is only the second time in Israel's history that this has happened?
Incredibly quiet in Tel Aviv, I would say, tonight, and incredibly tense. I'm actually hearing a military helicopter going overhead at the moment. And yes, so many police out on the streets, not just because of this Iranian missile attack, but also because of another incident that you mentioned before that happened around the same time, where 6 people were killed, were shot and stabbed to death in an attack in Tel Aviv by Palestinians from the West Bank. It's believed 2 men came in from the city of Hebron, hopped on a light rail in the Tel Aviv suburb of Jaffa, proceeded to open fire and then hopped off and then turned their guns on other people in the street. So 6 people have been killed there. 12 of them are injured. We understand a number of them are still critical. So there are so many security incidents that are happening at the moment. There is an enormous police presence on the streets. We have come across some military forces and police, and you can tell that people are definitely on edge. And given what I said to you before about how this attack really came quite unexpected. There wasn't a lot of warning. It wasn't like people had hours and were told, rockets are coming. Suddenly those rockets just appeared in the sky above. So people here have understandably been left quite shaken.